Hello, everyone. My name is Chong Shen. I'm a research engineer at Flower Labs. And today I'm very excited to share with you a brand new tutorial series from us. And this will be about deploying Flower in Red Hat OpenShift instances, and also how to run Flower apps on this deployed infrastructure. The series will be divided into three parts. The first part is about introducing Red Hat OpenShift and deploying a Flower SuperLink in that OpenShift cluster. And in the second video, we'll deploy Supernode in a separate OpenShift cluster and connect the two clusters together, the SuperLink cluster and the Supernode cluster, using the Red Hat Service Interconnect. Finally, in the third video, we will launch the Red Hat OpenShift AI, run a workbench, and then show how you can spin up a new Flower app and then run it on this deployed infrastructure. I hope you enjoy the tutorial series, and I'll see you at the start of the video. Hey everyone, in this first video, we'll walk through how to deploy SuperLink in Red Hat OpenShift instance. Specifically, we're going to deploy SuperLink in the isolation process mode. So you can see how you can isolate all the server apps from running the workloads separately from the SuperLink. Right, the first thing you have to do is you get an access to Red Hat OpenShift cluster. In this case, I already have one set up. So to do that, we just need to log in to this credentials that I have, and it will drop you into the Red Hat OpenShift console environment. The first step that you do is, if you have no project set up yet, is to actually go to the projects link over here and create a new project. You can call it anything that you want. In this case, for example, you can call it like a demo cluster, so on and so forth. For this video, I've already created a cluster beforehand called Flower SuperLink Cluster Demo. You can see the details over here, and I gave it a bit of description just to showcase that this is a demo that I'm using. Once you have this project set up, the next thing you do is to deploy the SuperLink pod as a workload. So to do that, you would go to the workloads drop down over here and click on pods, and you would click on the create pod icon on the top right corner. This approach is just one way to deploy a pod. I'm using the Kubernetes manifest, just pasting it over here, and there are other ways to do it as well. You could, for instance, deploy it via Helm charts. The YAML file that I'm copying looks something like this. I'll walk you through what the details of this are. But just for reference, you can actually take a look at an example of this YAML file by going to our framework documentations, clicking on deploy, and then clicking on the guide on running Flower on the Red Hat OpenShift. In this guide, you can actually go to this deploy Flower SuperLink and Supernodes on OpenShift, and you can expand this SuperLink deployment example over here and adapt it to the example that I'm going to show. The structure is pretty much the same with some small modifications. So going back to the OpenShift instance, what I have over here is a very similar YAML file, but the changes there would be to match the namespace to the project name that I've created earlier, and to also set the isolation as process mode. I'm using the latest Flower version 1.23, and we are pulling this from our public and official container registry hosted on Docker Hub. Once you hit create, you see that it starts to scale up. And soon, if you look at the pods, you should see that it's running. When you click on it, you can also look at the logs, and you should see some logs appearing. So that's great. We have the first component, which is a SuperLink. Now the next component that we have to deploy is a service. So this service allows you to establish connections to other deployments within the same cluster, within the same OpenShift cluster itself. Let me explain to you how it looks like. First, we're going to create another pod, and we'll paste a second manifest, which is this service manifest. Once more, you can refer to the example, in our documentation over here, we have the SuperLink service. Here you'll see that we have exposed port 1992 and 1993 in order for you to connect the fleet and the control APIs. In this example over here, I've changed it slightly because what I want to do is to expose port 1991 so that the SuperLink port can communicate with the ServerApp port that I'm going to deploy in the same cluster. I'm also going to expose port 1993, which is a control API. This allows a Flower user to run on OpenShift and AI, which I will deploy in this cluster, and I'll show you how that will work in the third video. Once you have this service set up, you can create that, and it should spin up pretty quickly. As you can see over here, this connects to the pod. And then the third thing that you have to deploy is the ServerApp. So I'm copying again the manifest from my reference. I'm going to create a pod one more time, and then I'll paste this. Now this manifest looks a bit long, but the structure is very similar to what you've seen earlier for the SuperLink pod. We again will deploy it in the same namespace of the SuperLink. This time we'll call it SuperExec ServerApp because one of the Flower components that we have is a SuperExec. And depending on the plugin type that you enable, whether it's ServerApp or the client app, it will call either the ServerApp process or the client app process. Over here, I have some additional flags just to make things a bit more lightweight on the logs, just to minimize the log content. And I've also increased the cache volume to just one of these mounted directories so that we can work with a small Hugging Face example if you wanted to. All right. And we can then create this. One thing very important that I want to highlight is that in order for the ServerApp to connect SuperLink, you need to specify the app.io API address. In this case, we have spun up the service earlier in the second step, and that service is called SuperLink-service. So we will pass that name here and use the port 1991 to communicate with the SuperLink. And that's it for this configuration. And I can create it. Like before, we are also pulling this SuperExec image from our public Docker Hub repository. So this is very lightweight right now. It doesn't contain any other dependencies apart from what is required for Flower to run. So in this instance, if you want to run an NumPy example, you can run it as is with the image that is provided on Docker Hub. We can then go to the pod to see what's running over here, and we can click on the SuperExec ServerApp pod. And if you look at the logs, you can see that yes, the Flower SuperExec has started and it's just waiting for the run. So going back to the overview right now, we have the SuperLink pod running and the SuperExec, which is connected to the SuperLink, and that is exactly what we want. So that's it for the first video. In the second video, we'll show you how to connect deploy supernodes in a separate cluster, and we're going to utilize the Red Hat Service Interconnect to connect this cluster where we have the SuperLink and the second cluster that we are deploying the supernodes into. And I'll see you in the next video.